It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back on Hometown Commander. And we are back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I bring my version 1.0 deck list for the commander in question in front of you for your consideration on my quest to outbrew your favorite Magic channel. Man, today's another fun one. If you guys paid attention to the channel last week, I actually had my two partners on the Commander Brew Crew podcast put their decks up for consideration last week. Josh with his Thalion Get Rog Monster deck, and Andrew brought forth his Sidar Jabari Precon upgrade. And Andrew's back this week for another deck, and a deck I think he would be the most suited to brew, which is why I was very happy to let him do it, and that is Goro-Goro and Satoru. This is a kind of card, though, as soon as I saw this card, I thought of him. This seems like the kind of style he would be interested in, and I feel like his brain would work a teeny bit better than mine would. 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red for a 3/4 says whenever one or more creatures you control that enter the battlefield this turn deal combat damage to a player, create a 5/5 Dragon Spirit creature token with flying. All right, so we have a payoff for hitting our opponents with creatures that came in this turn, and for 1 and a red, all of our creatures get haste. I'm sure there's a lot of ways to take this commander. But Andrew told me that the way he wanted to do this was to try to pair haste with as much evasion as possible, whether that's flying, whether that's unblockability, whether that's a teeny bit of ninjutsu, of course, because those creatures came in this turn, so that counts for Goro-Goro's ability. What he basically wanted to do was try his best to get as much evasion as he could to hit damage into our opponents. All right, so let's start it off down with the land base. Looks pretty solid. I think we're a pretty good chance of getting all of our colors down. This is a good example of how to build a mana base without fetches, without shocks, without triomes and things like that. Because I think of course, we're playing the Xander's Lounge, we're playing the Crumbling. I'm not saying there's no triomes, but what I mean is we're not relying on the on the fetch land platform. I think this is a great way to do it, paying off those getting those check lands, which are some of my absolute favorites when you're dealing with basic lands, playing those the commander lands. So I like this. I think this is a great mana base. I think my only upgrade, my thought here is, we see the Innistrad lands, which is great. Personally, I might throw in the Haunted Ridge and maybe the Filter lands over maybe the Temples, but hey, I think this is a really good mana base. The Pain lands aren't bad either, so I like it. I think it's a good mana base, and stuff like Sokinzon fits the strategy really well. All right, getting up into the enchantments, Fervor makes a ton of sense, giving all of our creatures haste. The only downside to Fervor, of course, in a deck like this is just because a creature has haste doesn't mean it's going to proc Goro-Goro. Of course, Goro-Goro cares about it coming in this turn, but I think more often than not, Fervor will deal with letting our creatures the first turn they come down, getting that proc. Of course, then the next turn they won't, but the good part about Fervor is the turn they come in, they're going to do really well. Dragon Tempest is a great card for a deck like this. Hopefully we're paying off this with some dragons, which we are in the main deck, but what we're going to do is every time we're making a dragon, they're coming in, they're going to see each other, they're going to deal damage. I like Dragon Tempest a lot. This is a finisher in a lot of dragon decks because the more dragons you have, the more damage you get to deal. And then Day of the Dragon 4, blue, 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 whenever it enters the battlefield, exile all creatures you control, then make that many red dragon creature ones with flying. Okay, well, here's a potential game ender with Dragon Tempest, depending on how many creatures you have. And then when it leaves that battlefield, sacrifice all dragons you control, then return all exile cards onto your to the battlefield you control. Okay, interesting enchantment. I think we're probably more often than not wanted on the front end. Get rid of all of our little creatures, bring down a bunch of dragons, then maybe potentially give them haste with the Fervor or something else. It's kind of cool. 7 mana seems a teeny bit high on the lane for me, but I think the more creatures we have, the more worth it becomes. Right. Getting up into the artifacts, we see some mana artifacts: Arcane Signet, Dragon's Roar, of course, because we have some dragons, Falwar Stones, Soul Ring. We have our talismans. All right, so good little manner of mana rocks there. I like it. We have the Greaves and Swiftfoot Boost for a little bit of haste. Blade of Selves seems like a great choice, depending on what we can attach it to. That Myriad can go a really long way as far as hitting our opponents. And the best part about the Myriad in this sense is going to be because you make the tokens when you attack, if those Myriad tokens get through, they're actually going to proc Goro-Goro and Satoru as well. So Blade of Selves is I think a great choice in this deck because it actually is going to give you more chances to get those dragons. Trailblazers Boots is just a great equipment. Getting it on your creatures, most people are going to play non-basic lands. I'd be very surprised if someone wasn't. So it's going to basically mean whatever you strap this to is going to get in nearly for free. So this is a great card. You put something really big onto the battlefield, get the boots on it, and start nailing someone to the wall. Arresk's Forge is a card that I was hoping that he would include in this deck. This is a card that I think fits this style a lot. You make that X1 where X is the number of counters on it. It gets haste, you swing it in, and then it sacrifices itself at the beginning of the next end step. But what I like about the Forge is over the course of a couple turns, this thing's going to start getting big, and then your opponents have to figure out, am I going to chump this, or am I going to just let it hit me? And it has trample and haste, so the bigger it gets, the worse it's going to get for your opponents. And then the Whisper So Cloak to give something unblockable and Shroud. So that's another great choice. Give it something big. That ability, whether it's something that came in this turn or something that's already on the battlefield, you're going to give it some fun. We got Thrill Possibility for some draw, Terminate for some removal, Negate, Counterspell, Offer You Can't Refuse, and Logic Knot for counterplay. Okay, I like it. We're probably going to have some extra mana, I'd imagine, where we can maneuver some extra mana. These work probably pretty well in the early game to kind of interact with our opponents as we're still trying to figure out how we're going to set ourselves up. Or in the late game, keeping that extra 2 mana open can definitely hurt a lot of players because they aren't always expecting a counterspell at certain times. So I like it, a good amount of interaction. Blasphemous Act for some removal, Feed the Swarm for some removal, Read the Bones, one of Andrew's signature cards for some draw, Ponder as well, Ghost Form to make some things unblockable, seems great in this deck, especially if they're things that already came in this turn. And then Cruel Ultimatum, 7 mana sorcery. Target opponent sacrifices a creature, discard 3 cards, and then loses 5 life. You return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand, draw 3 cards, and then gain 5 life. Gonna punish someone, get stuff back. I like Cruel Ultimatum. It's a fun card, and I think Commander is the most fun when you get to play these big splashy spells. And I think Cruel Ultimatum is definitely an example of that. All right, let's talk about our battles and our Planeswalkers, and then we'll get into our creatures. So we have Invasion of Kamigawa. When it enters the battlefield, tap target artifact or creature your opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. Okay, so this could potentially get a blocker out of the way. It's going to keep something tapped down, which is pretty great. And then we get it onto the backside. This becomes a flyer, a ninja in the air, and it says when it deals combat damage to a player or a battle, draw a card. Okay, well, that's great, right? So the front side, we're locking something down, and it's going to keep it tapped on our opponent's turn unless they get rid of that stun counter. And on the back side, we've got a free flyer. I like it. All right, we're playing 2 Kaitos. I love it. I love Kaito, and he probably fits this deck pretty well. At the beginning of the end step, if it came in this turn, he phases out. It's going to protect on that first turn it comes in, draw a card, discard unless you attack. Well, we're probably always going to be attacking, so that's a great +1 draw. -2, make a 1/1 ninja with this creature can be blocked. Okay. And we have a haste enabler. This could get us a Goro-Goro trigger. Otherwise, that ninja is just going to be there to proc some of the other ninjutsu things we have in the deck. So I like that. And then you get an emblem with whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player. Search your library for a blue or black creature card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. That's a great ultimate, but I feel like that -2 is going to be the bread and butter of original Kaito. All right, we got Kaito from Phyrexian LB1. Whenever one of our creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may return one of them to its owner's hand. If you do, activate the abilities of Kaito twice this turn rather than only once. Up to 1 target creature can't attack or block until your next turn. That's great. Draw a card on the 0 is perfect. On the -2, getting you that 2/2 draw an artifact creature token with Death Touch. And when this creature leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That's great because we can attack with this, or if it doesn't get blocked, of course, another ninjutsu target that then hurts our opponents with that target as well. Last up for our Planeswalkers is Savitri, Dragon Master. Until your next turn, creatures can't attack you or Planeswalkers you control unless its controller pays 2 life for each of those creatures. Some protection, I like that. The -3 gets any dragon card, puts it into your hand. I love Savitri for that reason, getting any dragon card from your deck and getting into your hand. And then that -7, kind of a crux of fate, destroy all non-dragon creatures. Good upside since we really want to just get those dragon tokens and some dragons out of our deck. All right, well, the last thing to talk about is the creatures. Let's do it. If I'm going to go through creature by creature and talk about it and how I think it fits the deck. If you're not interested in hearing me go through every creature, deck list is going to be down in the description. Drop me a like and subscribe if you want to see some more deck building content. But let's do it. Let's go through it. Alora, Merry Thief. Whenever you attack, up to 1 target tagging creature can't be blocked this turn. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. I don't think you care at all. You could always get a little token that you've gotten from Kaito or something else. Get in, get that Goro-Goro trigger, get the dragon, and get it back, and just lose the token. I think that's great. Allura fits it really well. Anger, when it's in your graveyard, everything has haste. That's killer. We want to get it in there and get that haste for the rest of our board, because then the best part of that is no matter what comes in during our turn, of course, before combat, it can attack and it can potentially get a Goro-Goro trigger. So, Budding Palm Ninja, a great ninjutsu card. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a menace counter from it. When you do, that player reveals their hand and you choose a non-land card, exile that card. So it comes in with the menace. So the first time you ninjutsu it in, get to exile a card from their hand, and if you can pick this back up, you can do it again. Biting Palm Ninja is a great ninjutsu card, and I think it fits really well in this deck where we're already trying to get things through without being blocked. Changeling Outcast, of course, a great example of that. Can't block and can't be blocked. It's going to hit through it. It's almost a guaranteed Goro-Goro trigger unless they have removal for it or any interaction with it. So that's great. We do still need some of these at the end of the day. We can't just rely on tips and tricks. We're going to need something to hit through consistently, and I think little things like this are going to be at Delina Wild Mage, another card that Andrew and I share our love for. Whenever it attacks, you choose a creature you control, roll a d20, and we start making copies of it. The best part is the copies are... the greatest part is the copies are non-legendary, so the better thing we pick, the better. Of course, we would love something that has an ETB trigger or something like that, but I think we really want something like a Biting Palm Ninja or a Nashi, or something that has a good trigger, or Fallen Shinobi, something that has a great trigger when it hits our opponent. It's probably the best target for Delina, right? Hit someone hard, deal some damage. When we have a ton of dragons out, if we have a Dragon Tempest out, then we just want to hit any dragon, make as many copies of it can. Think about something like Shivan Devastator. If you have Shivan Devastator out and a Dragon Tempest out, you don't care that the copies come in with no counters on them because they're still going to trigger the Tempest, right? So that's a great combination is there. Scourge of Valkos is probably your perfect target for Delina out, especially with the Dragon Tempest out, because Scourge of Valkos is another copy of Dragon Tempest. So basically, you're just going to start stacking up the triggers. I think that's one of your near perfect options for Delina in using that sub-strategy. But other than that, it's just making as many of these ninjutsu cards as you can and just hitting your opponent for the best you can. Elturreal Survivors, Trample Myriad, as long as it's attacking, it's +X+O, where X is the number of lands defending player controls. Again, this is great. It has Trample, so it's probably going to hit through. It's going to be a bunch of Goro-Goro triggers. Now, the only bad part is Goro-Goro is only one per opponent, but that won't stop us from just dealing as much damage as we can to our opponents in that combat, right? It just means we can only get one per opponent that we attack. But what I think what it will do is it'll help us spread the love, make sure that we're getting our damage split around really well, and make sure we're hitting in for that good chip damage over time. Fallen Shinobi, ninjutsu, when it deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top 2 cards of the library until end of turn. You may play those cards without paying their mana cost. Killer. If you pick the right opponent, you can get some pretty darn good things off the top of their library. Furkrag, Cunning, Instigator. One of my favorite commanders of a precon in a long time. Not for its precon, but for just what it does. Flying Haste. Remember, one or more dragons, you can attack an opponent, goad target creature that player controls. This is perfect because we're getting those dragon tokens anyway. Now we get to use them to potentially hurt our opponent. And whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, if that creature had to attack this combat, you put a +1/+1 counter on Furkrag and draw a card. So this is the payoff for goading that creature your opponent controls, is getting a card and a +1/+1 counter out of it for the process. Love Furkrag, and I feel like it's a great addition in a deck like this. Ingenious Infiltrator, whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, not only for itself, but for everything else. You draw a card when all of them hit. This is great because we're going to probably be ninjutsuing, we're going to be getting things in unblockable. So this is a change. This is a ninja as well. I like it. It's a good choice. It's going to draw us cards, get us into the things we want. Kolaghan, Storm's Fury. Whenever dragon you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and we can dash it in if need be. Remember, if we dash, it goes back to our hand and making the next end step, but it could be a good help trigger for Goro-Goro, because if somebody doesn't have a good flying blocker, Kolaghan could get in and attack them and get that trigger. Kolaghan is just one of my favorite dragons of all time. It's a good indicator of Tarkir and how much fun Tarkir was, and I think Kolaghan's a great card for it. I think this is a perfect deck for it. You can dash it in, get a 5/5 to replace it for your 5 mana, and then bring it back to your hand and use it next turn. So that's great. Legion Warboss was a card I was kind of hoping he was going to include things like this in Goblin Rabblemaster, because you get that 1/1 and it can attack. And if it doesn't, if they don't block it because they're not worried about it, well, you get your Goro-Goro trigger. And if they do block it, you didn't do very much for the process. And this is something that happens every turn. I think this is why this and Urbrass Forge are so good. And same thing with Loyal Apprentice, right next to it, is this happens every turn. Every combat, you're getting this token, which means that you don't have to worry about it. You're just going to get it. You're going to swing with it. You could do something fun with it. You can ninjutsu it if somebody doesn't block it. I just think this is a great value card, right? To get that 1/1 and be able to use it. Mishra Eminent, one at the beginning. Comment on your turn, create a token that's a copy of target non-creature artifact you control. Okay, except its name is Mishra's Warform, and it's a 4/4. It just shows out the type. It gains haste. Sacrifice at the beginning of the next step. We got a lot of decent artifacts, and the best part is that we don't really care. Any of them could become a creature. We can use them for mana, or that could hit somebody. I like it. That's an interesting inclusion there. I think Mishra does a good job for that sense. And the best part is, hopefully that 4/4 can hit something, right? Hit somebody, right? And if it does, then we get our Goro-Goro trigger. So I like it. Happens every turn. Again, I just preached about Liege and Loyal Apprentice and Urbrask Forge happening every turn. Mishra happens every turn. And so I love cards like this where you get to build this value over and over and over. Moon Circuit Hacker has the ninjutsu. If it does combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do discard a card unless it enters the battlefield this turn, we're probably almost going to always want to ninjutsu this in. So we get a free draw and hopefully a free Goro-Goro trigger as well. Makuta Ambusher, just lifelink and ninjutsu. This is great. Put something in that doesn't get blocked. Get this in, get some life, and the Goro-Goro trigger. I love it. I think this is exactly what we want to do, taking advantage of the situation that we're in. Nashi, one of my favorite cards that has ninjutsu. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of each player's library until end of turn. You can play one of those cards, and you can pay life rather than paying its mana cost. Nashi's great. Great. It's a great ninjutsu target because we're going to have a lot of them. And what this is also going to do is help kind of stop our opponents along the way. Take the big things they could potentially have on the top of their libraries and use it for our advantage. And then, of course, get that Goro-Goro trigger along the way. Nizumi Prowler, when there's the battlefield, target creature you control gains Death Touch and Lifelink until the turn. Well, this is great because you can ninjutsu this in and pump up another big creature you have attacking or another small creature you have attacking. If someone tries to chump one of your 1/1s because they think, oh, okay, well, I don't need him to get the trigger, and you go ahead and ninjutsu this and you give that Death Touch. I know that block's terrible for them right now. They lose that creature. So I like the Prowler, and it's kind of cool that it's an uncommon because it's a pretty decent card in this kind of ninjutsu strategy. But I think, again, it works really well here. Ortheon, Hero of Lava Brink, just feels right for this deck. 1 in a red, tap, create a token that's a copy of another creature you control, it gets haste. And then 6 in triple red, create 5 tokens that are a copy of another creature you control, they gain haste. The second ability feels like really great if you have like Scourge of Valkas out. It could potentially end a player with that many Scourge of Valkas triggers. If you have Dragon Tempest out, you just copy any dragon you have, so that feels like a nice upside. If you don't, you just make copies of some of these non-legendary ninjutsu creatures or copies of Changeling Outcast. It has haste, so it can't be blocked. There you go, perfect example. You get to get in. So the cool part there is changing for 1 in a red and a Changeling Outcast already out. You have 2 copies of it. You can get 2 Goro-Goro triggers. I like this. I think Ortheon works really well, and the more cheeky you want to get with it, probably the better you can get. Only sad part is they don't come in as non-legendary, so we don't get to just blind copy anything. But if we have triggers to take advantage of, we don't mind copying legendary creatures because they'll still get ETB triggers. Phantom Ninja just can't be blocked. Another perfect Goro-Goro trigger creator because it's just going to not get blocked again and get some damage. Phoenix Chick, it can't block, but it has haste. It's going to get in, and it's going to come back and get in, and it has flying, so most situations it's going to get in as well. Again, a 1-mana 1/1 that gets us that 5/5 dragon is worth it every time. Prosperous Thief, whenever 1 or more ninja or rogues you control do combat damage to a player, create a treasure. Well, this is great. That treasure can be used next turn to help us get some things, get some ninjutsu triggers in. I like this, and again, our goal is attack with a Changeling Outcast or one of those tokens with like Legion Warboss so that didn't get blocked. Dump this in, and then if we did the Changeling Outcast, play that back and use it next turn. The things the ninjutsu decks are so good at is taking these very small creatures, swinging in with them, getting them not blocked, putting something better in, and then replaying it and reloading for next turn. So I like that. Rankle and Torbrand, one of the new cards, probably a great choice for this deck. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or battle, each player creates a treasure, each player sacks a creature, or if a source would deal damage to a player or battle this turn, it deals that much damage +2 instead. That's honestly pretty interesting in a deck like this. I think more often than not, you really want to use that third ability, and you either pick a giant creature that's attacking, or, I think there's some combo potential in, a Scourge of Valkas or something like that. If you're going to put a bunch of dragons on the battlefield, you just pick it, and then it's going to deal a bunch of damage with its ability, or you pick Dragon Tempest or something like that. So this has a bunch of potential. At minimum, you're just going to have everybody sack a creature and put some things out of the way and give up one of your little tokens you don't mind. But at the top end, this could just take another source that you have that's already going to deal damage to someone and make it even better. Satoru is going to give everything ninjutsu to blue, which is great because now we can put in some of our big boys for free, which is great, or nearly for free, which is great. But whenever we activate a ninjutsu ability, we look at the top 3, put 1 in our hand and the rest on the bottom. That's great because we already want to be doing that anyway. We're already setting up this ninja plan. We're already doing it. So I feel like that's going to come into handy. We talked about Scourge of Valkas. Whenever the dragon enters the battlefield, it does X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. Again, very similar to that Dragon Tempest trigger. So that's great. Shivan Devastator can come in as big as we want it to get. and it has haste, so it's going to deal some damage flying and haste. No trample, but I don't think we're going to need it. I think that more often than not, you're not going to expect everyone to have a ton of flyers, so I feel like Shivan Devastator is going to come in and do a good work. Silver Fur Master, ninjutsu abilities cost 1 less, and other ninjas and rogues get plus and plus 1, so that's great. We can come in, make other ninjutsu targets cheaper. And if not, we're just getting a straight pump. This is great, and love seeing Splinter finally get a card there. References to the generals there. Thousand Face Shadow. When it enters the battlefield from your hand, if it's attacking, create a token that's copied another target tracking creature. That token enters the battlefield tapped and attacking. This is great because this actually kind of gets around blocking, right? Because if this ninjutsu's in, if someone declares block and this isn't declared block, the creature that we're attacking with, we can actually ninjutsu this in. And the way I'm kind of understanding this ability is we would then be able to bring that token tapped and attacking already declared, and our opponent would miss the chance to block that. So this is actually kind of really good if we can ninjutsu it in the right situation, because we can bring in a copy that our opponents can't block, or we're going to set up another Goro-Goro trigger because we're going to make a token that's tapped and attacking someone that's already declared their blocks. It's going to hit them no matter what. Presto, another Goro-Goro trigger, so I like that. Teammates Fanatics, just haste and myriad, something that could potentially get in and hit our opponents. I like it. It's a good choice, and it's a dragon, so it's going to go into all these other dragon sub-synergies. Here we go. We had to see some sort of haste enabler other than anger, and we see Urbrask, the hidden creatures we control have haste, and creatures our opponents control and the battlefield tapped. A great card. Hopefully it's going to lead to more Goro-Goro triggers, and potentially could lead to us winning the game even quicker by giving all of our creatures haste and plowing through our opponents. And then, of course, it's hard to talk about a ninja deck without including everyone's favorite ninja, Yuriko. Yuriko is great. It's going to just probably hurt our opponents a lot in the long run, looking at the top card of our deck and dealing damage to our opponents. And the best part is she doesn't have to be the one hitting people to do it. We have so many ninjas in the deck already. We have so much ninjutsu in the deck already that just getting Yuriko and putting her on the battlefield will end up netting us value. And if not, then basically we're just going to get her down and she's going to do it, and then we're going to get that turret off the top. So I like it. I think Andrew's done a great job here at marrying the good upside of the dragons and the ninjutsu. Going through this in my head, it just made me think, how interesting would it be to make just a Grixis dragons deck with Goro-Goro and Satoru? You have the payoff for the dragons. The dragons are already kind of interesting on their own. Maybe that's something I'll tackle later on the channel. Let me know down in the comment section if that's something you'd be interested in, seeing Grixis dragons with Goro-Goro and Satoru. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments for Andrew, or you want to get his opinion on anything, just toss it down in the comments. I'll have him be replying to some comments for you guys if you guys are interested. But that is all from me, and I will catch you guys next time.